Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode of FilmSnobbery Live. I am your host, Nic LaRue, and we are back. We did not have a show last week because we were away at the South Georgia Film Festival down in Valdosta, Georgia at Valdosta State University. And so we were there. I was there as a member of their jury. I got to watch some fantastic films there, interview some fantastic filmmakers, attend some great parties, and overall had a great time. I want to say thank you to Jason Brown, the festival director, for having me out there and taking such good care of not only myself, but all the filmmakers there who attended. We all had a great time, as far as I know. I really enjoyed the filmmaker, like, little impromptu breakfasts we all ended up having and the great conversations that came out of that. It was just a really good time. I made some wonderful connections there with people, and it was a really swell time. We have a fantastic show this week for you, though. We have Jenny Frankfurt on from the Finish Line Script Competition, and she is going to come on to talk to us about. She's going to come on and talk to us a little bit about not only the script competition, but we're going to talk to her about a little bit of everything, in terms of what's going on with script competition-wise. There seems to be a lot of things going on in the script world these days. There also seems to be a lot of people since the strikes looking for answers and information. Maybe she might have some insights there to talk about. And then lastly, this person is a former literary manager. I have questions. I'm an author. I'm sure I definitely have questions that this person might answer. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome to the show Jenny Frankfurt. Hello.
Hey, hello everybody. Hello,
Hello.
hello. Good to see
So,
everybody.
thank you for
Yeah,
coming.
actually, Nick, did I think a friend of mine was at that festival. He had a movie there. I think Guacamole Yesterdays.
Yes, they won the Best of Fest.
Yeah,
Yes, they did.
Hudson
Yes,
Phillips,
I
a
interviewed.
great friend.
Yeah, I interviewed one of the producers, Michelle Moreland, and the
Hmm.
cinematographer Trisha Solland. They were both there representing the film. The unfortunately the filmmakers weren't able to make it out, but they at least sent
Oh,
someone, and
yeah,
that's great. That was actually
yeah.
twice in that festival that happened. There was another great short film there called. Interception that the filmmaker
Hmm.
wasn't allowed to make it, or not allowed, but she wasn't able to make it. Sorry, yeah, that didn't sound right. She wasn't able to make it,
Yeah.
but she sent her cousin, who was a former football coach, college
Oh,
football coach.
okay.
It has to do with Jane Kennedy and her stint in as an anchor, a sports broadcaster, and all that, and a lot of the racism things that she went through during all that. Great little
Oh.
documentary. It was fantastic. But sending someone there who had a lot of insight into that, even when the filmmaker
Yeah,
couldn't be there, that was a great idea on her part. Absolutely.
yeah. Yeah, well,
So
that's great. I mean, yeah, I saw Hudson, who wrote and directed Guacamole Yesterdays, is an old friend. He uses Finish Line for his notes, and we've seen many drafts of Guacamole Yesterdays. It's a great script. I haven't seen the movie yet, but I look forward to it.
you know what? It was a great movie. I'm
Yeah,
really looking forward to whatever they end up doing distribution wise because
yeah,
it's definitely something that like I would absolutely see on like Amazon or
yeah,
Tubi or Netflix or something like that. Like definitely of the quality. A lot of really good insight too on how they got that production together. I just released. It's on our YouTube now. I haven't put it on our website
Oh,
yet, but I
cool.
just released our interview with them. I
Oh,
just got it
great.
done today before the show. But yeah, that was a really good movie. I really enjoyed it. I kept comparing it in my head and also in the interview to that movie Timer, where it was out years ago. That you very subtly uses like science fiction elements as a part
Yeah,
of the storytelling mechanism, and yeah, it was really good. I enjoyed that. So yeah, it won Best of Fest. That was one of the ones I was on
yeah.
the jury for. So that was
Oh,
also very
very cool.
awkward for me doing interviews and doing all this thing with the filmmakers, and I'm like, I can't tell you where
Yeah, what I
I'm
think of your
what I'm
film.
doing. But yeah,
Well,
how long has Finish Line been going for now?
this is our seventh year. Seven.
Seven.
I want
All
to
right.
say eight. I think it's seven. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
But you've been in and around the industry now for a long time. For what,
Yeah.
20 plus years
I've
now?
I've been in the industry since I was 19,
Wow.
in New York. I started off, I was at film school, actually, I was at NYU, and I ended up, I don't remember how I found out about the job, but I got a job, and I thought, I got to go take this job. So I took it, and that started my career. I was at William Morris, which is now no longer around. Now it's part of WME,
Yep.
which is William Morris Endeavor. And yeah, I learned a ton of stuff and started my career in management or agenting,
That's fantastic.
representation, I should say.
Now,
So yeah.
when I have questions because I asked a lot of people who went to film school about this, and it's actually wonderful you went to NYU. I met at that festival. I met a student. He was a high schooler who was just accepted into NYU's film
Oh,
program, and it
great.
was number one made me feel old as hell, but but two, like I was like that is fantastic. Like that's from what
Yeah,
I understand, great program. I'm familiar with NYU, the New School,
yeah.
Columbia, all those great film programs up here in New York. But when you went there, do you feel that you got out of that program what you needed to succeed in the film industry, like straight out of the gate, or did you feel that like wow, it was my time either within the film industry, either adjacent in a situation like William Morris or something like that, that really is where you got the experience and the more like street knowledge, you know what I mean, of like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Well, sort of, the answer to that is I got partial important knowledge from that. I started off in the film production program there and fairly quickly realized I was in the wrong place. I didn't want to be a director and I didn't want to actually make the movies. I don't know why I didn't think of that like before or what was going on, but sometimes you just need to be there and know. And so I transferred into the cinema studies program, which did teach me a lot. And I kind of regret not finishing the program because I got a job, so I dropped out. But effectively, I watched movies and we talked about them, which
That
is all I
that's
really
my
want to
job,
do.
and I didn't have to
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't
I'm
have to
happy
pay all those
doing,
student loans.
yeah, exactly. I'm happy doing that anyway. And yeah, I just spent a lot of time, we talked about and learned about, different genres and different wonderful filmmakers and, but that was what I ended up focusing on. And I find that a lot of what informs my knowledge of film and
Mhm.
my knowledge of writing is partially connected to that and how I look, what movies are interesting to me and so on came from that time for sure
Absolutely
in
no.
school.
Yeah, I mean, and when you're put in that position too, where you're watching and reading that much, that kind of immersion situation, you really
Yeah.
do understand a lot more about like the nuance. I mean, you can't help but pick it up. I mean, it really just
Oh,
ends up,
absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, I spent most of my time at NYU in the library where they would have cubbies where you could, and like thousands and thousands of, at the time, I guess it was like a VHS or
Yeah.
I'm dating myself, but and you would just go to the front and you'd say, I want to watch The Godfather, and they'd give you the tape. You'd go in there, put a pair of headphones on, and you'd watch it. And I just spent all day there, just movie after movie after movie after movie. So,
You talk about dated technology. I was hanging out a lot at the festival with Dan Mervish, the gentleman, one
oh,
of
I
the
know
founders of
Dan.
Slam Dance. He has a movie out right now
Yeah.
called 18 and a half.
Hmm.
A fantastic gentleman has been very very helpful to me because we both have the same publisher. So
Oh, cool.
he was very when I got my deal, his first thing was like, give me a call if you want, and I'll tell you what to expect when you're expecting, so to speak. Very nice gentleman.
Yeah.
But I was kind of like his unofficial chauffeur during the festival because he flew in
Gotcha.
and I drove. So we were
Yeah.
staying in the same hotel. So when we needed to go, which was basically the same place all the time, I was just like, I'll take you. That's fine.
Yeah.
Plus it got me some great one-on-one time with the man. But tell him,
He's a
I
good
say
guy.
all that to tell this story of one of the stories I was telling him was about how when I was a kid, I used to get dropped off, or I'd walk over to the our local library because my mom worked a lot, so it was kind of just
Yeah.
a place to kill time, do some homework, whatever. But I was mesmerized by microfiche
Oh,
because
yeah, I love microfiche.
it seemed like this like I know it was even in the 19 this was circa probably 1988. This was ancient technology even by that by that date,
Yeah,
but at the same time, like for me, I was like, this is my portal into the past, like this is my
yeah.
time machine, and I get to do this like this cool almost Ouija-esque kind of
It was
move
totally
around the
cool.
glass and all that. I loved
Yeah,
it. I loved it,
yep,
and I went by that same when we moved back because this is I'm now kind of in my near my old hometown. I went
yeah.
back to that library to show my wife, and of course, I don't know what I was expecting. Time
They
moves
don't
on
have
whether
it
you like it or
anymore.
not. Those machines were no longer there.
Yeah, I
Um,
know some libraries still have it, but it's obviously it's been updated to
yeah, yeah.
digital
Well,
stuff. Yeah,
that's the internet
and
now for you.
microfiche was fun.
It was
Yeah,
fun. Yeah. It also
yeah,
it was still like it wasn't. It was still like this hands-on thing. Like you had to
yeah,
take the slide. I guess slides. I don't even know what they call them. I guess they were ostensibly transparencies. You had to take them
yeah,
in and out, and there was still like this physical media aspect to it, very
yeah.
similar to like a VHS or DVD or something like that. So yeah,
Well,
that
when
was
I
that
would,
was
yeah, I mean, it's just interesting. I'm sorry to interrupt. What
no.
you said, physical aspect, is I remember when I was in, I don't even know when it was in connection with being at NYU. It was before NYU. I remember taking an editing class at the new school, and because editing was always something, and still is something that's I find very interesting.
Hmm.
And I remember, we were doing like
Oh,
cutting, the
yeah,
actual cutting. We were doing it was a movie about a ballerina, and we were doing the cutting of you know,
the film.
of the film. I
Yeah,
mean, and taping it,
slicing and splicing.
slicing
Yeah.
it, and I mean, so yeah, everything was hands-on back then. We
Yeah.
didn't, computers were not the rage.
I had a similar kind of like, oh, this is really cool feeling when I first started getting into film projection back when I was just out of high school, and actually actually while I was still in high school. Now that I think about it, it was probably junior year or so. I was working at a movie theater, and there was a gentleman there who was nice enough to say like, oh, I'll teach you how to do this,
Mhm.
and it was fantastic because you break out, you have the film, it's on the reel, then you're looking at it, you're looking for, making sure
Have
this,
to find a
everything's
place
spliced
to
properly, yeah, and
let
then
it go
the
in.
tape
Yeah,
machine, like the actual
yeah,
splicer itself, like it
yeah,
was magic, and it was like I'm making movies, like you had
yeah,
that
yeah,
feeling like
yeah,
I am the editor now, it's very Captain
yeah.
Phillips, like look at me, I am the captain now, like I felt so like empowered at that point, and it felt real. Like you feel like when you were handling film, you really did feel like you were an extension, even as just a projectionist. You felt like you were an extension of the film industry. Now, I mean, obviously, it's DCPs and servers and stuff, and I have a technology background, so that's fine. But like,
Yeah.
it is missing a little something. The best you'll get then in terms of that feeling is like, oh, I have to change the bulb. Like. That's the closest feeling I've gotten, since doing that. But
Yeah.
so yeah, so
All
all right, so
right.
you
Good
moved
old
on to like
days.
you you moved on to like William Morris, or now William Morris Endeavor, and
Yeah.
then
Mhm.
you eventually got into literary management. How did you fall
Yeah.
into that?
Well, when I started at William Morris, the first desk that I started working on was the head of the theater department, which was obviously a big deal. The head of the theater department, William Morris, and so I was working with some, awesome writers and directors, but mainly writers who were playwrights, but who also worked in film and TV. And because that, I mean, you had to make a living.
Yeah,
You can barely do it as a playwright. And so that got me sort of into that whole world. I mean, that was the biggest world there is, Broadway and off Broadway writers, and then breaking them into, watching my boss at the time, breaking them into film and TV and so on. So, um, I didn't always work with writers. I mean, I started working with them and I've continued to work with them throughout, although I've also worked with actors and performers and stuff like that. But um, writers were always there and they will always, they, obviously remain my love, which is why I started Finish Line. So, but yeah, that's what got me into. Also, it's huge. I was a huge, bookworm and and a movie buff and all of that stuff. So I was very into, just reading and stories and stuff like that. So
What do
I
you think some of the bigger misconceptions about what happens at an agency might be? Like, I think a lot of people think of it as, like in your position, you're sitting around all day and you're reading screenplays, whether it's, a Broadway theater, screenplay type of thing, or, an actual theatrical feature screenplay or something like that. And then it goes off to someone who goes yay or nay, or, says,
right.
it's crap. It
Well,
goes right
first
in
of
the
all, you're
dust. It
certainly
goes
not
right in the
spending
dustbin.
any,
Um,
yeah, you're not spending any time during the day doing that because the pacing at an agency is extremely fast and you're just rolling calls all day and organizing things for clients and your boss and listening in all the calls and taking notes and just it's just insane. I mean, the amount of information that passes through an agency is that's I mean that's why an agent can sometimes be what you need depending on where you want to be in the writing world. Like if you want to be if you want to staff, having an agent is really, really important, or having your manager, or if you have one, have access to agencies lists. It's really important because all of the information goes through the agency. Although a lot of management companies are a lot bigger now than they used to be, and they sort of can take the place of an agent. But there's nothing like what happens at a CAA or a WME or any of the
You might be a
agencies.
good person to answer this question because, believe it or not, I actually have gotten this multiple times in the last several years. What is the difference between an agent and a manager?
Yeah, an agent is effectively, I think this has changed a bit, like I said, because as management companies have become bigger and managers have become more powerful and so on. An agent effectively accepts information.
Okay.
They they have thousands, hundreds, thousands of clients, depending obviously on the size of the agency, and they are like putting forth a list of people. Like, let's say there's an open assignment, which is something I'm not even sure are really around anymore. But let's say there is an open assignment at Paramount for a horror film, and they're looking for a writer. Okay, they have an idea, and they're looking for a writer to write the script. And at an agency, they're going to send a list to the Paramount executive that has all of their great, horror writers on it, or
Right.
thriller writers, anybody who's right, who could be right for it. A manager is going to have a lot less clients, and he's going to be like, you know what? It's not really right for this client. It's not right for this one. I'm going to send two people, and you know that kind of attention is what you get at a management company.
Okay.
Whereas an agency is sending, all of them and they hope somebody sticks. And it's good to have that backup of the agent, calling and so on, and pushing forth. But a manager is going to be the one who says, I'm going to do this for Nick. Nick's right for this. And he's going to push you. And he's not going to push, 100 other writers. So
You know that's
management,
right.
it's called personal management for a reason. It's personal. I mean, managers shouldn't ideally have a cadre of clients. They should have not a handful either, but somewhere in between where they can really uh, spend very specific time with each client, building their career and being proactive instead of an agency where they tend to be gathering information and accepting offers instead of being the ones who are going to make that call to a producer saying, hey, you may not know my writer Nick, but he's really right for this, and you gotta check him out. That is what a manager does or should do. And
Yeah.
an agent, is there as the hub of information. And if you want a staff, having access to an agency is super important because they just have all of everything, whereas management companies may not be as connected to everything.
And it seems to me that like the bigger difference between a literary agent and a entertainment industry or a film, film, television, theatrical agent is one seems to find their clientele, the other one seems to want the clientele to find them. And I say it like, all right, so most of the authors that I know that are let's say just general fiction authors, they'll go ahead and they'll do a lot of queries, and there are like query
Yeah.
seasons, just like for us there's award seasons and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So like they'll go out and they'll do queries, and they'll wait for these specific agents or literary agents to open up their software or whatever they're using these days for those queries, and
Yeah.
and then once they're done, taking what they've got, they're done for that period of time, and that's it. Versus, it seems like when we have conversations about screenplay competitions, and we have conversations about what happens with screenwriters, actors, directors, producers.
Yeah.
It seems like it's more like I was discovered somewhere. Like they saw my screenplay or my pitch or my log line or something like that, either through Finish Line or
Right.
I won at the Nichols, or I won
Right.
this
Right.
other thing or something. What is the is there really that much of a difference there? I feel like I'm very fortunate. I got my book deal with no representation because I just found I did the research and I found out that my
Yeah.
publisher allows cold calls ostensibly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, um, here, I guess the answer to that is that, anyone can call themselves a manager.
correct.
I mean,
You've had
anybody.
stories of actors acting as their own managers. They just set up the
Yeah. I mean,
second line and use a different voice.
I haven't heard those stories, but yeah, of course, you can do that. I mean, anybody can just say, I'd like to start managing actors or writers, and I've got some friends, and I like to hustle, and I'm going to do it, and that happens. So in that sense, it's a more active role in, I'm looking for people, I'm looking for people. Um, I think that agents tend to, I mean, it's different. I mean, it's different. First of all, you have to have a license to be an agent. You can't just call yourself an agent.
Right.
Also, agents tend to take people at a slightly higher level than a manager might. But I mean, it all depends on the person. I mean, some agents really want to work as managers and are really involved in clients' whole lives and so on. Other ones are happy just sort of being the people that help the deals get made and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's really a personal thing. But yeah, I mean, anybody can be a manager, which is something to be wary of.
Yeah.
And anybody, not everyone can be an agent. So it just depends on what you're looking for and where you are in your career, I suppose.
I
A lot
got
of people say you don't need agents. It depends on where you're at. I mean, like Jack Nicholson never had an agent, or Harrison Ford never had an agent. They only had
yeah.
managers their
I,
whole
I
careers,
guess
I
Bill
mean,
Murray's kind of famous for just not having, like, he has a 1-800 number. You call it, it's basically his lawyer's number.
oh
You
wow,
know,
yeah. So I mean, if you have a lawyer and a manager, you can probably make do. Depends on what your goals are.
if and for anyone who's on the show and you hear clickety clackety and you're hearing a noise, that is my dog walking in and out of the room, and we have the hardwood floors and she has the long nails. She's being cute right now. All right, so So she missed me. I was gone for a few days. She didn't like that.
Yeah, I hear you.
But yeah, all right. So let's get into a finish line here, because
Yeah,
you folks have been around for a while now, and you're a
yeah,
very known quantity in the industry, and you guys
yeah.
offer a lot of really interesting stuff. Like in your opinion, what is like the big market differentiator between you and everyone else on the field?
I mean, I think I have a couple of answers to that, actually, a few. Um, First of all, I think we have a great a great deal of integrity, which, as somebody who has worked for other competitions as a reader before I started Finish Line, in between sort of leaving management and starting my own competition, figuring out what I wanted to do. I read for a lot of competitions. Um, I mean, we're just honest. I mean, to me, that's the most important thing. I'm
Yeah,
not trying to pull anything. I'm not trying to make crazy, stupid money that doesn't make sense or any of that kind of stuff. Um, so that's one thing. But that doesn't mean I'm the only one who does that. I'm just saying, to me, that's really important. We focus on rewriting, which isn't something that I think other competitions do. And it came from a situation where I was reading for Nicholl many years ago, or 7 or 8 years ago. And there would be so many scripts that came in that I thought, this is almost really good.
yeah,
And everybody is like, I rushed, I finished my script just in time to send it into Nicholl. Well, that's not the way you're supposed to finish a script. You're supposed to like let it sit and get some feedback
yeah.
and have friends read it, or trusted readers read it, and do rewrites and all of that kind of stuff. And I would get so frustrated because I'd be like, this is just not there, but it could be. And I
Yeah.
thought, hey, maybe I should start a competition where I focus on rewriting. And so I did. And that's where it came from, because I just thought, if people had more of a chance to work on their scripts, whether they get notes from us, whether they get them from, it doesn't really matter where they get them from,
Yeah.
although I think we give great notes. Um, you have time to work on it, and the first draft that you would send in is definitely different than the last draft that you would send in before the actual final deadline that comes much later. And I get, far and away, the amount of emails that I get from writers saying, I love this process. I love it. I love being able to, follow a sort of a notes process like a TV studio or a film studio would do, where you have an executive who's working with you on your script and is giving you notes, and then you send in a new draft and they're
Yeah.
working with you on the next draft. And so that's how it's set up. And it takes a little longer,
Hmm.
but we also get, I think, material that's, almost ready
Yeah.
by the time the competition, chooses the winners.
Yeah.
So to me, that's where we stand out.
And I kind of very much agree with like the mentality of that. I mean, as a film critic, my biggest thing that to me is disappointing is that by the time a movie is like by the time it's in front of me to review, it's too late for me to offer any insight or opinion. Like I
Yeah,
just have to tell you, I'm sorry, this is what it is, and I'm going to
yeah,
tell you honestly and truthfully what I feel about it. That doesn't
yeah,
mean you shit on it, but like it just means that
right.
like constructively speaking, this is not, this may or may not be where it could be. And when you're
Correct.
dealing with I think first or second time filmmakers, I think that it very similarly maybe to first and second time screenwriters, that there are some resources they might have lacked in the creation of what they were doing, that or
Yeah,
insights or feedback or something like that if they took a little bit extra time may have made all the difference. But the problem, I think, and the real big difference between I think screenwriting and filmmaking is that the filmmaking, once you are kind of committed and the train has left the station, there every day is money. And
yeah, yeah,
so
right.
you're kind of hampered by that, where you're less hampered by that when with screenwriting, with the exception of your own arbitrary deadlines, thinking like, if I don't get it in this year, I'm going to have to wait a whole other year. Well, okay, wait a whole other year. Like what,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if
you
you're
know,
writing a script, I totally agree with that. I mean, there are plenty of scripts. I mean, and we offer a lot of deadlines,
yeah,
but we let them, we offer them sort of, real time where you can actually really work on your script
yeah,
in that process. And, not everybody does, and that's fine. Some people think, and then some of that may be financial for people, or, they're not as committed, or they, whatever. I mean, not everybody's in the competition world for the same reason. Some people are really in it to win. Some people are like, I just thought it'd be fun to see how this was, how I did, and, for whatever reason. So that's fine. It doesn't matter to us. But we also give notes in a sort of a different way than a lot of competitions do.
hmm,
A lot of competitions give notes where, they're sort of like character and lots of notes about your characters, and then,
right,
dialogue, and to me that's really abstract, and how you can move those notes into the script and into a rewrite. And the way that we give notes, and it works for some people, it doesn't work for everybody, is we give notes as we're reading. So it's like, how is an executive or producer or director, whomever, who is reading your script, reading it? I mean,
right,
how does it feel as they're
yeah,
reading it? Where's the bump? Where's the, where's this like, ooh, this is interesting?
yeah,
It's not like this composite idea of your characters work, but here's what doesn't work. It's like, this works, and then on page 15, but on page 21, we need a little bit more.
yeah.
And
It,
some people,
it's more true to actually how studio coverage works. In
exactly,
that
it's
case, yeah, it's
very,
one of the big
it's
complaints I have
page.
about, like, the blacklist and stuff. It's like, I don't care if it's an 8. I want to know, why
Yeah,
is it? Yeah,
we don't use numbers, and I know some people get upset with that because they really want to understand what a number means.
but it
What
doesn't
I'm
mean
telling
anything.
you,
That's the
it doesn't
thing.
mean anything.
Yeah,
It
it's
means nothing.
arbitrary as all hell. And
Yeah,
I've
it's like, you
interviewed
want a
people.
number?
Yeah,
Here's
we
six. Here's
so
the six.
yeah, we started doing offering script coverage on FilmSnobbery just because I saw a little bit of a market for it, and I don't charge for reviews, so I got to keep the site running somewhere. But I
Right.
did make the conscious decision to hire people with a lot of industry experience,
Yeah.
including people who had read for Nichols, Blacklist, etc. in the past, because you want to hire people who are very familiar, or we're doing it at a studio level.
Yeah.
And I will say that, like, I was talking to folks from interviewing people from the Blacklist, and I said, what is the difference between a 6 and a 7? And they said, how I feel today. Like, there's really,
Yeah.
it's so arbitrary. Like, there are some days I'm tired. I've read 16 of these things today. Yeah, it's a 6. Screw it, because the one I read
Yeah.
before it was a 7. And
Right.
and that one didn't make me feel as good as that one did. And it's like,
Yeah.
there's
It
real
is
same,
arbitrary.
yeah, yeah,
It is
and
arbitrary. It doesn't mean a lot, but some people want that. And again,
yeah,
some people are in it for other for certain reasons, because
absolutely,
let's say they got an 8 on the blacklist or whatever. And blacklist is great. I mean, I don't have anything bad to say about the blacklist, but by any stretch. But what we do is we go through it, and it's, I say page by page. It's not like you're going to get 100
right, right,
notes. But we end up, people say, well, I don't get a number. And I go, no, but you're going to get 6 pages of actionable notes.
yeah,
And that's, the minimum of what you get. And they're actionable. And some
yeah,
people, it's like, this isn't working. I suggest you do this.
yeah,
They're suggestions. They don't have to be done. You can do whatever you want with your script.
yeah.
This is coming from somebody who has read so many scripts, you can't believe it, and the people that I hire as script readers have extensive, experience in the industry, in reading scripts, and they're paid very well.
Yeah. And that
So
was
they
the other
have,
thing about the
yeah,
people who were, who were going to work with me, is like, I want to make sure that you're getting paid, that it's worth
yeah,
your time to
yeah,
do
it
this,
takes
especially in
a
the
lot.
economy that we're in.
yeah, it takes many, many hours to read a
Yeah.
script well and write something up that is, intelligent and, and really and helpful. So
Yeah.
it's not just
Actionable
this
is the correct word you would use like a couple of
actionable
times.
is the word.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're there to try really help you improve the script
Hmm.
and tell you what's working and what doesn't work. And, that's that ends up being, 6 to 8 pages usually. So for me, I'd rather really go through and give that than, just make somebody feel good with a number or feel bad with a number.
Yeah.
I'd like you to feel like somebody read your script.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, as we say, the number is arbitrary, while I do understand that the idea of like, well, someone might see Nicholl's quarterfinalists, an 8 on the blacklist, or this or that or whatever, and they're using that as part of like, let's just call it a marketing push, and that's
Sure.
really what it
Yeah.
is, and I get that.
Yeah.
Like, you're trying to put your best foot forward. My view on that is your best foot forward is, if you're going to pay for feedback, get the feedback that is going to make it so that when you do submit to something like that, you are going to win. Like,
Yeah.
or that you are going to, like, it is your best work.
Well,
Like,
yeah.
regardless of who
We,
reads it.
well, absolutely. And I mean, we've done tons of coverage, notes for people who go on and win other competitions or
Hmm.
who, do sell the script or, we do so on and so forth.
Yeah,
So
get repped, whatever.
we're,
Yeah.
we're, yeah, I mean, it just sweetens the pot and we're happy to, we get it and we're happy for you to now send it to whomever you're going to send it to as well and have them, respond. But I really think that, I really think it works the way we do it. I don't think it works to get a page of notes that are
Yeah.
vague and a number. But that's just me.
No, I agree with you. So that helps. And honestly, I think there's a lot of people out there who agree with that. I
I
mean,
do. I do.
there's a lot of broken things about how talent is discovered and nurtured in this industry, the entertainment industry as a whole, not even independent film, but like the entertainment industry as a whole. I mean, whether you want to call it gatekeeping, whether you want to call it people just don't give a shit, or it's about the bottom line, or it's about whatever, there's a lot of broken aspects of it. So anytime people are taking the time to make sure that if things are going up the flagpole, they look right, that is a valuable asset and tool to the industry. So I greatly
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do have a question for you, and it's actually a two-part question, and it does relate to all this. So the first question
Sure.
is, what is your favorite genre of script to read and give feedback on?
So, I guess drama. I mean, I'm a drama. I find it easiest to connect to. But that being said, when I read for Nicholl, you're allowed to say what you don't want to read, like
Hmm.
I just can't read this, sci-fi or whatever. I'm just not into it or, and I think that's really smart.
Yeah.
Um, and I used to have those where I was like, I'm really not into sci-fi. I'm really not into, zombie, vampire, werewolf. I mean, that is like a category, Nicholl. And now I find that I've opened up in finding great scripts in so many genres that I never expected that I would relate to,
Hmm.
that I'm just much more happy to read everything that comes through, and that genres that I didn't think would ever win, finish line have won and sold, or are set up at at studios or at networks and stuff like that. So I'm open. For me personally, I guess I like drama. Which I
Cool.
like thrillers if they're really well done.
Yeah.
But I like, a good script is a good script.
No, totally. And all right. So the second question, kind of dovetailing into that a bit, is comes from this. So I tend to write a lot of comedy as part of, it's stuff I've done some stand up. I've done punch up for other folks' scripts for comedy and stuff like that. And I find, and I'm not the only person who has said this, or other folks that I've spoken with have the same. It's not a complaint, just an observation of just like I find that submitting comedy to any of these, whether it's competitions or even for feedback and stuff, because comedy is so subjective to a person's taste or to their sensibility of what they think is funny, I feel like it's very difficult I'll just use myself as for example, to get good feedback on something like that. Because generally speaking, you're not going to be able to, not you specifically, but I'm like, a person may not be able to tell me like how to make this joke funnier. Instead, what they'll say is, "I didn't appreciate that joke," or like that rang hollow, or or especially if it's an off-color joke, like they'll rather call you on your whatever level of unwokeness it is as a writer, versus saying like, "Okay, so I know what you were going for here. What you probably should have worded it was this way, and that would have gotten you to this punchline."
I hear what you're saying, and it's not untrue. I guess with comedy, I usually say, this joke didn't land for me.
Gotcha.
Or I say, I only comment on the like wokeness or
I know it was just the first word that came into my brain.
I understand what you're saying though.
I
only comment on it if it's a through line in the script, and then I'll say, you should just beware that if you make too many jokes about this, it might limit the readers of it, people who are appreciative of it. It's not to say that you're not going to find somebody. And if it goes like really far, that's offensive and stuff like that, I just say, it's just a suggestion, but you might want to rethink this, going down this, because it's gonna, it's you're limiting, you're limiting yourself. I don't profess to be a comedian. I can't rewrite the joke. I'm not there to rewrite the script anyway. I'm just telling you, what works for me, and again, over a period of many, many years, being open to things that aren't things that I personally would, buy if I was a producer or want to make or something like that, to being able to think as broadly as possible about what is just good writing, and knowing that, okay, this is a silly blah, blah, blah script, this is a silly zombie script, let's say, but, or a stoner zombie script. And that may not be my cup of tea, but I recognize that it's funny. I recognize where people are going to, and it is a process of having to sort of strip down your own interests. I was in a meeting with a big company last week, and they said, we want everything but comedy. We just don't want to do comedy. I mean, because the owner of the company is an actress who is Australian, and they also have some of their executives are British, and they're like, the comedy is just too hard to pinpoint. Like, British, American, Australian humor is all just too different, and we're never going to fit. We're never going to agree that this is a project that we want to do. So at least on a development level for them, no comedy. So
and honestly, that they're absolutely correct in that. I mean, American sensibility. I mean, the funny is funny, but understanding what is going to be funny to an audience and profitable or whatever, on that level, on the development level, is tough, especially when you consider that international. Like, yes, we all speak English. I used to live in Australia. My last short that I wrote was it's a British comedy short, which I've run by other British people, and thankfully passes the sniff tests, so I'm good there. But British comedy tends towards a certain type of a certain type of sense of humor, sensibility,
Really?
and American humor goes in a completely different direction. And Australian humor is a lot more, I find, a lot more liberal, but you got to hit those jokes just right, otherwise they're not
Yeah.
going to land. You're absolutely right. Three completely different things. So why try to like get that?
Well,
See,
yeah,
that
he
I
just feel like,
understand.
yeah,
Yeah.
no development on that. Actually, it was interesting that somebody the other day on Twitter was like, would somebody read first 10 pages of this comedy that I'm writing and tell me if it's funny? And I thought, all right. So I read
Yeah.
it and it was funny. It was British funny. I've spent enough time in the UK to know that and I said to him, yeah, it's funny. Like, did I laugh out loud crazy about it? No. Did I smile throughout it? Yes, I did. Yeah, it had a nice tone. It was fun. I enjoyed it. It was 10 pages. Um, and, I said, this is obviously a British script. I mean, it's not going to work in America. And he was like, no, absolutely. It's a British script. I would only sell it, I would only, try and sell it in the UK. And he was clear about that, and I was clear about that. And I enjoyed those 10 pages. But yeah, comedy is tough. And we've only really had honestly one winner that was a full out, comedy. I just thought it was hysterical and, like a rom-com, kind of like a, a bridesmaids kind of humor rom-com.
Yep.
And I mean, I could watch Bridesmaids every day. I just think it's the funniest. I mean, I just think it's great. I enjoy it immensely. Um, but I also like different kinds of humor. And
Mhm.
so anyway, I mean, the point is comedy is hard um, in a competition, and whoever is reading it really has to strip away their own interests.
Yeah.
But any good reader at this, at a certain level has to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
So I had somebody today say about some notes. I don't think the reader liked sci-fi. It was a sci-fi script. And I looked at the notes and I was like, there's nothing in here that says that the reader doesn't like sci-fi. The script had problems,
Yeah.
but sci-fi wasn't the problem,
Right.
and people love to make up reasons why people
Well,
don't like
yeah,
the script,
it's a
but
defense mechanism,
it's a
absolutely.
defense.
It's a thing.
Sure.
You brought up one thing too that. Oh, and by the way, the other just to leave the comedy thing on one other quick note, which is also sometimes comedy is written well, but acted better, and unless you actually
Hmm.
have seen the performance, that performance will elevate the comedy versus
That's
what is on the page to what is actually on the screen. So I think that there's something there too of like maybe not being able to translate that script to screen in your head. Like how would this be if this person was doing this role or something like that. You
Well,
know,
that's true. It's
yeah.
also true in general. In fact, I was just doing notes on a script, not a comedy, where actually said, I don't quite understand like how this scene is going to work, but I think I might understand it more visually than I do as it's written. Like
Yeah.
when it gets to the screen, I can see that it will work.
Right.
However, and I just have to be vague about it, but on the page it was a little confusing about where someone was placed and where the other person was placed. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to like make you rewrite this whole scene because it's not that important.
Yeah.
It's just I think it's going to work better once it's actually seen.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
It's
and
more
that's
visual than it.
similar in that way.
I
And
gotcha.
I mean, we got bigger fish. Sometimes we got bigger fish to fry. Not every little bit of needs to be dealt with. So
Yeah.
that's
And
not
sometimes some of it's taken care of in the next rewrite anyway.
exactly.
You don't want to
Yeah.
overcorrect, so to speak.
Right. Exactly.
But yeah, do you take a look at while you're giving feedback and stuff? Are you kind of keeping any sort of like industry trends in mind of like, hey, this would work really well right now because there are people that are buying this kind of product, let's call it at this
We
point,
really
or
try not to talk at all about commercial aspects of the script.
okay,
I know that there are competitions that do that. I, for one, think it's not for me to say,
Okay.
it's commercial or not. It's too big a thing. It's kind of like giving somebody a 9 or an 8.
Right.
It's building them up. Like somebody said that this is commercial. Well, I mean, I thought that the script, this comedy script from several years ago, would be a slam dunk. It's one of the only scripts that we've had that hasn't, ended up selling or being optioned, or so maybe it's because it's comedy, but also, at some point nobody knows anything, right? So all I really want to focus on is getting that script into its best shape. And things change so quickly in the business
Yeah.
on a sense of, what's commercial and what's not. And, these, you see small films like, you see a big film like Barbie, which is going to be huge. And then smaller films like Past Lives or All of Us Strangers. And how am I to say that, you got to find the right people. It's all about, it's all about the person, what the competition is also going to, that's my cat sneezing, um, what they're going to do for you if you've won or if you've got a script that is in shape to be seen. I did something actually a couple of weeks ago with the script, which is very rare for me to do. And I said it in the notes. I said, I actually know somebody who would, get this in the right shape. I know somebody who would read this immediately, a producer who would read it immediately, because it was that close to being something that I knew, because I know a lot of producers and execs and so on from the many years I've been in the industry and in management, that I was like, I know exactly who to send this to. And I said that to them. I didn't tell them who it was, but I
Right.
said, I know that somebody can read this and would be interested in this. I rarely do that, but it's just like, I really wanted to make sure that this person took seriously rewriting it. But other than that, no, I don't say you're a weird, obscure, sort of quasi-philosophical, you know, fever dream script is, why? I love those scripts, man. I mean, some of those are my favorite scripts to, really understand writers and appreciate their creativity and imagination. So I will never, ever, I hope I'd never, ever critique a script based on its commercial aspects. It's not what we're there for.
I get
Yeah.
that. I can absolutely respect that. I mean, obviously, we're on social media. We see what's going on all the time. We probably read the news and what's buying and selling and all that. So I'm sure
Sure.
we're aware. I think even subliminally we know what's going on. But I can absolutely respect the fact of like I'm gonna not take that into consideration as a means to make
Because
sure
it
that
changes. I
yeah
mean, I could say that, and this person could say, you know what? I don't want to, screw it. I'm going to put this away now, and I'm
yeah
not, because it doesn't fit in with whatever's happening. Who knows? You know how long it takes for a movie to, a script to
yeah
get from, somebody reading it to actually being on the screen takes so many years, or it can, that by the time it happens, it's
yeah.
it's fresh, or
Two,
so
3 years in development, maybe, and then they
the right
make it.
thing. I mean, maybe good for
Then
it.
they package it, they make it, they get it out. Well, they package it, they make it, and then they shelve it for a tax write-off.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, that's the thing, is that, it changes, and there's a lot of ways to find people to make movies. I mean, we're not only going, first of all, we go international a lot of the time.
Yeah,
And we're not only, sometimes we do, we go the independent route, the financing route. It's not just, getting it to, people with deals at studios or networks. So it's like,
yeah.
um, a good
Because there
script
are
has a
there
lot
are
to do with
smaller
anywhere.
budget there are smaller budget producers out there that are looking for, hey, I want something like in this genre under 2 million that can fit this, or I want something that is 250,000 or less that can be done in one location with like three people,
Absolutely.
blah blah blah. That
There's
happens all the
that,
time.
and
Absolutely, yeah,
that happens a lot, but also I get people, I know a lot of people, who will say, we're looking for something to sell in China, or we're looking for something to, to
yep,
sell in Poland. I mean, really, I mean, we're just, I mean, I've been doing this long enough that I'm talking to the people and, some people are, they're looking to sell stuff in certain areas or they're looking for genres and so on. So like you said, or certain budgets. So we're open. Like we're not trying to, it doesn't have to be,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be, I'm not into actually, I mean, I love a good big commercial film, but that's not usually what, what
Oh,
wins.
don't get me wrong. Like I love a good low budget indie. That's my bread and butter for my career. So like I'm all for that. The more of
Right?
those I get, the more I get to travel around and I get to see cool
Yeah.
movies and meet cool people and then get an opportunity to do interviews like this. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah. So another thing that is a bit popular right now on social media, and I find it concerning, and I don't know if I'm ever overreacting on this, so I would love to know if you have an opinion one way or the other. And without getting into
Yeah.
any particular groups or anything that like are that kind of do it, I see a lot of screenwriters that will do like, oh, I'm gonna do like my first page, was it First Page Friday, or I'm
Mhm.
gonna do
Right.
this or that. I have such a problem with putting my work out there in that way. And that's not to say that like a log line is probably not a bad idea or something like that. I always thought, I've said it before in interviews, like I thought that the OG Twitter was the perfect log line generator because of the character limit and all that kind of stuff. And it's not that anymore, but and there have been instances of people selling, scripts and concepts off of Twitter, and that has, so it's obviously something that is not completely unheard of. But
Yeah.
in a world of, especially now in a world of AI and information scraping and all of these kind of things, I get very uptight on other people's behalf when I see them like, here's like my first 10 pages, here's my first page,
Yeah.
here's a poster and a whole litany of information about myself and my in my script,
Yeah.
um,
Um,
without protecting their IP ostensibly. Do you have
oh,
an opinion on that one way or the other, or am I just being reactive?
well, I have two minds of it. First of all, hopefully anybody who's putting anything out there has had it copywritten, it's copyrighted, and if anybody ever did anything with it, you could sue. The most important thing is that, you copyright your material. Um, but a couple of things. On one hand, I don't take it that seriously because I believe um, a first page is very important.
Mm-hmm.
That's for sure. But it doesn't tell me everything about how you are as a writer, except for that first page, which is very important. But it doesn't tell me that the other 100 pages are going to be as good as that first page, or that you're
Right.
going to be able to know how to develop this character well, or, that you're going
How to
to
transition from Act 2 to Act 3, or
transition. Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, so there's a lot of things that I can't know by that. Is it a good, some of it can be like, oh, okay, this person isn't is talented, they've got an idea. Rarely for me does that make me want to jump on them on that. But I do think that Twitter is a good place to network.
Yeah.
That's for sure. There's no doubt about it that people are on there and paying attention and so on. Interestingly, though, sometimes people have very crazy ideas, like, it seems to happen on Instagram when I post like, this is who we are, blah, blah, blah. And they go, what? So you can steal my script? And it's like, no, I'm not going to steal your script. I have nothing to, first of all, you have it copywritten.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do anything without your okay.
Yeah.
And I think that people have to get over that, obviously, or no one's ever going to read their script. You're just
Yeah.
going to write it and, it'll never happen. You have to follow the rules. You have to protect yourself. I do think there's a limit to what you want to put out there. A first page, if somebody's really looking to find, people that can, uh, you know, that are better than the rest is helpful, but it's by far not a indicator of what the rest of the script will be. And that's why I find competitions or people who want to, will read your first 10 pages for a certain amount of money or give you notes on it. To me, that's kind of bullshit, because that's what rewriting is for. I mean, the first 10 pages may be great or they may be terrible, but then wonderful stuff happens and at the, later on. And you shouldn't be judged for, you need to be judged sort of on the entirety when it's ready, not on like, how did I do in this first 10 pages when page 11 was, is really where it really started to get good. I mean, you can fix those first 10 pages, but if I don't like them, then I'm going to tell you that I don't know the rest of the script. I'm not being as articulate as I'd like to be, but
no, I completely understand. Yeah, I mean, you're working with what you
gotta
have.
Read the whole script.
Yeah.
You gotta read the whole script. You gotta do it. It's you can't. I mean, at some point with some writers, you're obviously going to know this person can't write. Yeah. But if somebody is kind of intriguing, if there's something intriguing there, you got to read the whole thing. Yeah. And you got to understand, gee, okay, they're really great at dialogue, but they need to work on character development or transitions or structure or whatever, there's not enough of a theme here or whatever it is. But people, their scripts are inconsistent. I mean, that's part of what the whole rewriting process is that sometimes the first half is better than the second half or vice versa. And so, and that has to do with the midpoint beats and so structure and, so it's very hard to make any kind of judgment based on
just the first 10. Yeah.
Just for anything.
I feel you. Yeah. I mean,
I recognize the importance of marketing because I market on Twitter and other social media as well. So, but I wouldn't put my eggs in that basket.
I definitely understand marketing, behind the scenes of indie film marketing, a Film Snobbery field guide due out by Routledge this June.
Hey, congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. People are going to start getting sick of that. I don't care.
You do it every time.
This is my time now. I gave you guys 16 years of free, Film Snobbery Live episodes. I'm getting my book out now.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome.
So one other thing that just has struck out at me this year, and maybe it's just because it's just a little more visible or public than in previous years, or maybe I'm just becoming aware of it, is I noticed that, so every year, obviously, people are submitting for the Nichols, and that is kind of a big thing, and you've done work with them, so you probably have better insight into this than I do. This year seems to be slow for them, in my opinion, because there are people that what they're doing is they're saying we have this max amount of scripts that we're accepting this year, and there are people like, oh, I just submitted, and they're like number 2,500 out of 5,500, and I'm like, I remember years past where they would like within a couple of weeks, maybe even less than that, like the Nichols would open. And it was like grand opening, grand closing. They would just be like full up and then done. And this year, I'm like, I almost am having like delusions of grandeur of like, I could submit to the Nichols and maybe get in and maybe win. Like, because the competition seems so much less this year. Or is that just, again, me being crazy based on what I'm seeing on social media in my brain dead capacity?
Well, I don't know why they've set a limit, but I think that there are a lot more script competitions than there used to be.
Yeah.
And there are.
I think the strikes also did not help. I mean, not that people weren't writing, but I think that a lot of people. The strike
definitely affected us. I mean, people, these ideas that they couldn't submit to competitions, and we went to the guild and the guild's attorneys, and the attorneys said, it's fine, you're absolutely fine to be submitted to, you just can't set up any meetings yet. And, that was very difficult for us, and I'm sure at most competitions. But I think that there's just a lot of competitions out there right now, and more than there used to be. And that's not to say that Nicholl isn't a great competition, but there are other great competitions. And I just think, the wealth is being spread a little bit more than it used to be.
I agree.
But I also, by the way, noticed that it wasn't quite as high. I would love to think that it's that people are taking their time to to write their
Rewrite.
scripts and
Yeah,
making
no.
sure that they're ready to
I
go
agree.
into
No,
go
yeah,
to
no.
Nicholl.
But
Nicholl
I
is,
even from my perspective, doing script coverage and stuff like that, even we saw a giant slowdown as well. I mean, it's just,
sure.
and I think that in our case specifically with the strikes, we came out kind of at the end of last year, just after the strikes were ending, and every writer because they hadn't been staffed for a while, and all the the overall deals fell out, and all the
Yeah.
force majeure crap happened and all that. I think
Yeah.
that so many writers with like actual studio experience were saying like, I'll give you notes, I'll do you coverage for like
Yeah,
a
yeah, a lot of
fraction
people
of the
do
price,
that.
and I mean, number one, I'm glad they're getting the money, so I'm going to put that up front and saying like, you were out of work for like 5 months, like, and you're gonna be out of work for another 5 as the industry gets ramped back
Yeah.
up, and the level of spite in the studio system subsides. I think that like, absolutely get yours now. Like, I will be around for a while. I'm not worried about it. But hopefully my folks that are working with me are understanding of that situation as well, and they seem to be, from like the emails we've been saying back and forth. Like, yeah, everyone's, I'm like, you're not going to compete with someone like saying like, oh yeah, I'll give you script notes for like, or coverage for like $20. Like, I'm not.
Yeah. I
Like,
do have
it's,
something to say about that, though. Really important.
yeah,
Everywhere, wherever writers are on social media, Facebook pages, Facebook groups or Twitter or whatever, saying, I have a script, I'd love to, can we do a script trade or, something like that.
yeah,
It's really important. Now, this is me as a professional saying, I do think that people should get professional script notes. I do think it's important. However, I totally understand sometimes it's expensive, too
yeah,
expensive, or whatever the issues are. It's really important that you know the person that you are getting your notes from and
yeah,
how they are as a writer. Because I have seen so many times on Twitter somebody say, I want, will somebody read my script and give me notes? And the person who speaks up, I know is a writer, and I know that they are not in any way at a capability to give good notes because they're not a good enough writer.
yeah.
And I don't
And that's not
think
to
that
say they
people
might
are,
not be a bad writer, but it could be that, like, comparative to that writer that they're going to read, it's a lateral move, so that
it could
person's
be a
not going to
lateral
get
move,
anything
or
out of it.
you're being kind, Nick. It could be a
Probably.
lateral move, and sometimes they're
Or they're
just
dog
not.
shit.
They're
I don't know.
not. Well, but I mean, it's just true. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
going to name names, but I mean, the
Sure.
fact is that you shouldn't. If you're getting peer scripts,
Yeah.
peer reviews, then you should know the peer's level of writing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what you're doing is, may or may not mean anything.
Yeah.
So if
I
you're
talked.
not going to pay for it, then you should definitely, and getting notes as well should be, you should check out people, who have gotten notes before. Did you like the notes? Blah, 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 all of that kind of stuff. How many notes, what kind of notes do you get? How much, what if are they, do they, whatever, how are they structured? But really, that is, I mean, just something that I see almost every day where I'm just like, oh, well, I mean, do these people even know how this other writer writes? I mean,
Yeah.
do they even understand if that writer knows how to give notes? Or, I mean, somebody the other day was saying to me, I need a job, I need a job, can I do notes for you? And I said, well, have you ever done notes? And they were like, no, but I can, my writing. And I'm like, you're a good writer, but that doesn't mean you know how to give notes. It's
Yeah.
a very, it's something that's taken a long time to learn.
Believe
to
me,
do
everyone
well.
thinks they can be a critic until they have to be a critic.
Right, of course, and I get it, but I'm just saying, buyer beware. Like, just be careful who you're
Yeah.
asking. I mean, and
And
and giving you
desperate times for a
material.
lot of people too. That also means there's going to be a lot of people out there with alternative agendas who may not be on the up and up on that. And so, I mean, of course,
True.
there's, looking out for people who are actually going to be helpful to what you're trying to accomplish, but also trying to not also get taken for a ride at the same time.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's a tough one out there. But no,
It's a couple
look,
days.
our hour together blew by, just absolutely blew by, and that's fantastic. And I appreciate
Yeah, I
all
love
of
it.
your time because that was a that was fantastic. So I want to make sure that everyone knows where we can find Finish Line here. So we can find you on Twitter, X, Twix. You're left Twix, I'm right Twix, right? Or the opposite. You're at Finish Line Script, but
Yep.
not script. No T at the end, right?
Only that's as far as they let me go.
That's as far as they let
Finish
you
line
go.
script
God damn
with the
you, Elon.
T.
Uh,
Yeah. No, that was early.
yeah,
That was Jack.
that was.
But yeah,
Yep,
we're at Finish Line Script on Twitter. We're everywhere else. I think we're Finish Line Script Competition.
yep.
Um,
And
Instagram
finishlinescriptcomp.com.
and
Yep.
finishlinescriptcomp.com.
Yeah.
We're
What's the current deadline looking like, and how much is the current
yeah.
deadline?
We are in our latecomer deadline,
Mm-hmm.
and our deadline is May 15th. After that, you have until June 10th to get final drafts in. So if you enter and you want notes on May 15th, you still will have almost a month to get your notes and rewrite. So we will always let you have time to rewrite. But May 15th is the last time that you can, actually originally send your script in. We do not change our prices from regular to late because we're not idiots. I mean, that's not a nice way to say it.
No,
We're
you're
not
not trying
out
to
to
take
gouge you.
advantage.
We're
Yeah.
not there to take advantage. I mean, my father, God rest his soul, has tried so hard to get me to raise prices over and over and over again, as a good dad will do. But I'm not comfortable with it, and we're always there if you need us, for help. We might be able to come up with something.
And you got a
But
new grand prize.
we have a big new grand prize, $10,000.
Hello.
What?
I'll take some of that. No.
Yeah, $10,000 grand prize this year. And as usual, 50-ish, I'm still working on them, industry pros who will actually meet and read your material, read your material, meet with you, maybe even get in business with you. It happens every year that somebody gets in business with somebody. We have big time new people on our list this year. So
It's a
check out the
beautiful thing.
website.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's great, and you can submit if you're a screenwriter. You can submit over on Film Freeway or on Coverfly. Personally, I love
Yep.
Coverfly. I think that their submission
Okay.
system is slick as snot.
Yeah.
I say
And
that
by
as
the
someone
way,
who's I've done a few things. How is that on your side?
yeah, it's pretty good. I
Good.
mean, I've had to adjust a little bit, but I mean, because we do things a little differently with rewriting, because we allow for free rewrites. You can
Right.
continue you have to purchase notes, but if you want to just keep working on your own or working off of somebody else's notes, you can keep submitting for free. So we've had to work that out with Coverfly. But features, TV pilots, and short film scripts. So Coverfly, Film Freeway, $10,000 grand prize. Lots of people to read your stuff and meet with you and introduce you to other people who might be interested and get your career cracking.
What's
It
not to
happens
like?
every year. Yeah, what's not to like? It's awesome and cheaper than most.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What? How much is it again?
It's like,
Let me just
I
double
think it's
check.
like,
I'll
I'm
click
not sure
on.
what
I'll
it
click
is
on
right now. It's
Film
like
Freeway.
late, the regular and late for just submission only was like 52,
Yeah,
and
52 for script only, and then if you add the script
then
notes, it's 125, which is
for
still
notes it's
good.
125.
Yeah,
But
because I'll be on. I mean, we charge for a feature, for script coverage, $100, which is still, if you're counting
pretty on the
the
low side.
hosting amount that the blacklist will that charge you, we're still less than them. So
Yeah,
you're
I
still
mean,
less than them.
we
So
do
that's
it.
and you get an entry.
It is. It's 125. You get a minimum of 6 pages of notes, and I pay my writers, pay my readers really well. So
Yeah,
a lot of that
you
just
got to
goes to
do it.
them. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, Jenny, I want to thank you for coming on and
Well,
you
thank you,
know,
Nick.
reaching out. It was fantastic
Yeah.
having you on, and thank you. You kind of got
Pleasure.
me back in the groove of this after like being at the doing like festival questions for a while. So
Yeah.
thank you. You got me back into asking like real people questions, not just like the
Yeah.
festival. Like, how do you like at the festival this week? Like, oh,
Yeah,
you
right.
know. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome.
Next week we're sussing out who the guest is for next week. It might be some call it Lux Algorithms own John Schieffer may come back on the show. Longtime friend of the show may come back on. I just have to double check because being gone, everything blew up and I lost track of where everyone is. So stick around again next Thursday, same time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time over at filmsnobbery.com/live. Of course, you can find me all day, every day. I am open all the time like a 7-Eleven over on Twitter at FilmSnobbery. You can find us on filmsnobbery.com and where we have new reviews, new everything. We got a bunch of new content coming out from the South Georgia Film Festival, all the interviews and stuff we did. I've got 9 of them up right now on our Twitter page. They'll also be migrated over to our website shortly. And stay tuned for a new episode of Bolded Slugs with Zeus Ryan that comes out. That's our screenwriting podcast that comes out
Awesome.
tomorrow. So you'll actually be able to get it just after midnight because I already put it in the system. So that one will be great as well. Sorry I missed you guys on last Fridays. I was away and I forgot. So, yeah, so check out that one. And that's really about it. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. And thank you again, Jenny, for coming on. It was
Thank
a
you.
fantastic talk that we've had, and I hope
Pleasure.
that you've enjoyed it as well. And
Did.
yeah, we'll see you all next week. Goodbye.
Bye.